want to tell a story about Dona Antonia, Mrs. Antonia. And growing up in Brazil, everybody had house help. We weren't rich at all. It actually was a necessity because the city of São Paulo, I may have said this in another video, it was very polluted. My dad had asthma. My mom and Dona Antonia literally cleaned the house top to bottom every day. We had drapes. They had to clean those. I can't remember how often, but it was a lot of work. And I learned by watching them how to keep a nice house, and I have learned how to reduce it real quickly. As soon as I dirty a dish, I clean it, or there's something on the cabinet, wipe the whole thing down. If I have to scoot something underneath the rug until I can vacuum it later, so I can be 1 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute ready for company, or an hour if you give it, depending on. So I can be walking to the door and throwing things in a closet. But we don't have little kids, so there's no. But when I would ask how I could help, I would tag along and I would watch. Sometimes mom would say, if you want to help, you can stay out of the way. And so I did. I'd watch them. I'd go in my room. I organized. That's how I learned how to be very meticulous in my room. My mom let me redecorate the house a lot, so that was really fun. And we had. That's a story for another time. Antonia was one of three. We had Fatima, who was a little younger, Dona Maria José, who, after she would eat lunch, she'd always say, "Thank God I had lunch." She was so sweet. Her name actually translates to Mrs. Mary Joseph, and then Fatima is Fatima, named after the saint. So, but Antonia was the one who was with us the most. She actually had a Facebook account. Her daughter Hita set her up, so we got to see her around the time we adopted Monica, and she was in her late 80s. Unfortunately, she passed away around the time Monica came, and I'm gonna have to ask Monica. I think she actually did get to say hello to her. It seemed like there was a lot going on, but we had such a nice talk. She pretty much looked the same sweet spirit, and always had something to eat. It always involved food. It was always food. Like my big fat Greek wedding. Lots of people and lots of food. And when I would come home from school, my mother would say, "Oh, Richard's baked you brownies." And I was so gullible back then. I was just 5. I believed it. He was a year. One time I caught my mother putting the equivalent of lifesavers in his hand. They were called dulcora. They were square. They did not have a hole in the middle, and all different flavors. I loved them. All kinds of candy. And I saw her putting it in his hand, and she said, "Look what Richard gave you." I said, "Oh, Mom, you've been doing this the whole time." And so I think she still did that when I would come home. "Look what Richard made for you. A little snack." So the cat was out of the bag. Antonia, and I don't know, this was really interesting. This memory came back to me. It was a fun memory of what I recall. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure it was Dona Antonia. We had those red, they were thin sort of rubber, and they had a little tiny designs, which would allow it to, give it a little traction. And I'm usually good at multitasking and trying to be good because there's a constable to my left. So, and he's got his light flashing because something's going on. And I'm not going to be a looker. All right. I don't know why I recall throwing the ball with her. It may have been a soccer ball, it may have been a basketball, and it may have been one of those balls. But I recall those were really fun to play around with because they bounce like a basketball. It could be a volleyball, a soccer ball. They were light enough to do anything. I do recall when our mission team we just had the 60th anniversary the first weekend in June, and every anniversary there would be a banquet, and I believe you had to be 13 to go. I didn't get to go. One of my dearest friends said, well, Denise, ask your parents. I got to go when I was 12. I had just turned 12. I think she was sort of 12 and a half. And she was pretty mature. She always seemed more mature than her. You know, she looked like a young lady several years before I did. I was a year younger than her, although I was probably 4 years delayed behind her developmentally, and she still is one of the brightest people and kindest people I know. So my parents said, no, you can go next year. I was heartbroken, and Antonia came in. She said, no more crying. I think she made food. I do remember watching TV. We had this television, and for those of you younger folks that don't know, in the old days, now we didn't have black and white in Brazil. We didn't get I don't know when Brazil got color. I don't know if it was the mid 70s or late 70s. I know we had black and white until 75 when we moved, and then we had color, and I thought, oh, this is like heaven. So we had we didn't have telephones. We definitely were spoiled. We had to go pay somebody to make a call, and it was so expensive, and everybody would gather around the phone when possible, because you wanted to make the most of that time and hear everybody's voice at the other end. But Antonia made sure that I believe we watched there were always great shows in Brazil, whether they were imported from America, Japan, Europe, and their own were very well done, very well produced. So that was my memory of Antonia. I have a lot more memories of Antonia, and I was so glad that I got to see her not long before she passed, because she was just the same old, and just sending me lots of hugs through the internet. It was so cool. So that's it. We'll put a comma here. Take care. Bye-bye.